Hey, it's your boy Dre with some notes off the top. I'm going to be really annoying real quick and ask you to rate and review us if you use Apple Podcasts, really wherever you listen to Fine Time, but especially if you use Apple Podcasts, please rate and review us. That would be great. Another thing, ask us for Blue Sky invites. We are on Blue Sky. We have some invites to give out. DM us on Twitter at Fine Time Podcast if you would like one, because, well, Blue Sky isn't perfect. It definitely has the benefit of not being owned by a white supremacist. That is a big boon, Kevin.
It's also got more than one letter in its name in 2023.
Did you know they changed the App Store rules so he could get X? Because you had to have 2 letters in your app name before. Now you can have 1. They changed it for him so he could have X, like a fucking dumbass. Anyway.
What an asshole.
For real. Also, this episode is sponsored by Hunter Biden's cock. Let it be an inspiration to us all. Let's start the show.
Step into video game land. Welcome to Fine Time.
Hello, party people. It's your boy Dre. It's your boy Steve.
Wait, what?
It's your boy Kevin.
Oh.
Do I need a catchphrase? What are you quit looking at me?
Yes, you need a catchphrase.
Shucks, it sure is. Fuck off. I'm here.
Yeah, sure. I was trying to just take roll call, but you guys are like, huh?
I don't like getting put on the spot. You know this.
That's why I do it, baby.
No, I
It's
sound
called
like an
doing
idiot.
a bit, Andre.
Jesus Christ. I mean, I was trying to do one. Should we talk about the video and the games? We also have your mailbag questions. I want to say up front, thank you for everybody who submitted them and everybody who submitted multiples of them. We might pretty much get to them all. So thank you for that. But first, these messages. Just kidding. We don't have any messages because we don't have any sponsors. Steve, do you want to talk about a thing?
Well, last time I briefly talked about Pikmin 4, and since then I couldn't put it down, and then I finished Pikmin 4. So, Pikmin 4. What is Pikmin 4?
It was the video game of all time.
Because 1 second you're on track excavating an area, then you see something shiny on the ground in an area that's quiet, too quiet, and then a big ugly thing pops out and wipes out a chunk of your squad. At least that's how it used to be, but now we have Ochi. Ochi is that fun little dog guy we've been seeing in the ads, and he's a very, very good boy.
Would you ever say a dog is a bad boy?
Or
are they all good boys?
No, some of them are also good girls.
Maybe if he does something cutesy bad and you're using in the sense like, oh, you're a bad boy.
Okay.
Let's not sexualize the dogs, Kevin.
That's not sexualizing the dog.
I see where your mind is at, sicko. Anyway, are the dogs from Resident Evil good boys or girls?
They can't be. They couldn't be. They didn't ask for that. So, yes. Anyway. It's not their fault, Andre.
Okay, they got turned into zombies. Okay, fine. I'm sure they were good boys and girls before that.
But, Ochi. 2 and 3, they tried introducing other spacemen so you could multitask on the fly with the Pikmin. But here they try to change up that formula by having him be a sort of alpha Pikmin that the other Pikmin will listen to. He can, in addition to being able to have them go to him and he can toss them like a spaceman, he can also fight and carry things back to the ship too. But only one at a time. Like if there's a pile of something, he can only carry one of a thing instead of the entire group of a thing.
So hold on. Is like the dog the main character?
He's your buddy.
But who are you?
You are you are a new OC do not steal that you have to create in a vague character editor that doesn't have too many options for whatever reason. It's kind of weird. I know that the first two games had Olimar, which is and it's weird to hear him. He's in this game too in a capacity. And it's kind of weird to hear his voice here because you don't hear it in the Smash games, and he's like ready for Masterpiece Theater all the time.
He is I imagine him trying to sip some tea and it just clinks against his helmet, space helmet.
They all talk in that Star Fox gibberish kind of, but
Nintendo gibberish.
Yeah, but yeah, you make your own character here, and he's part of a rescue squad, and that's kind of the other thing. You're like interacting with other ones here, but it's not really about that so much as you and Ochi like fighting the rest of the squad and going on a treasure. You're doing all the Pikmin stuff this time. You know, game 1 was the ship, game 2 was treasure, game 3 was fruit. You're doing all the shit this time, and the box gives it all away. You get all the Pikmin to eventually play with too.
I just had a thought. So, they re-released Pikmin and Pikmin 2 on the Nintendo eShop, right? Re-release them. I wonder if Pikmin 2 keeps... Because that shit had, like, Duracell batteries and, like, other brand name stuff.
Oh, I don't know if they still have that license.
Right? See, but there was a lot, though. I don't know. Anyway, it just popped in my head.
Well, I'm sure I'll find out when I get to it eventually, but... So anyway, there's another thing about Ochi where you can... gather all of your Pikmin at once onto your guy and just have them charge into enemies, and that kind of makes a lot of these fights trivial, especially if bigger guys aren't armored in the first place. Like, they try to mitigate this a bit by stalling out how long it takes for you to be allowed to carry the usual 100 Pikmin with a collectible, but even along the way, once you see an enemy, once you know what's going to work, and doubly so if you play the other 3, because there's a lot of overlap because, it's been a decade since the last one, just like there was a decade between 2 and 3. And Nintendo did put in the effort, no question. There's polish all over the place, and they're stuck in this weird position where they need to reintroduce the franchise to a new audience every time. And so it could just be me, but I steamrolled the first few maps worth of goodies and other tasks. And I feel like it didn't start poking its teeth out towards the end of the game. And by that point, I had all the Pikmin I'd ever need to do just about anything I'd want to do. If something catastrophic happened, I'd just go back to the onions and deploy more. Even the night segments, which were more like, what's that genre that we don't see too much anymore on cell phones?
Tower defense
games.
How did I know what you meant?
Because there's only one. I mean, which they work, and the glow Pikmin are fun, but they weren't that bad. And I know I'm being petty. I know a Pikmin game where a party wipe at any turn would be panned, but at the same time, like I was talking about when it was Final Fantasy 16 time, I've been a fan since 2001. How about some DLC for us Steve types, where we get a few more maps of high risk, high reward, multitask adventuring? Take off the training wheels. I want to be stranded at night. Like, I'm going away, and then I suddenly lose communications with the base, and then I gotta, I really gotta think on my toes. Then there were a lot of fun ideas they did have, but they just felt neutered.
On the flip side, does this mean, like, would this be fairly beginner friendly, or would it just be too easy for everybody?
Yeah, you can play Pikmin 4. Anyone can jump in and play Pikmin 4, just like how anyone could have joined Pikmin 3. I'd say 2 was really the only one with an especially steep learning curve if you really hadn't played before. And I guess that's a good thing. I'm being greedy. I want the Pikmin game for people who played Pikmin games before.
You want Mario 3. You don't want Mario World, basically.
Yeah. I mean,
but you're right. That's what Pikmin 2 is, because it came out the same generation. And Pikmin 2's difficulty is why that is one of my favorite Nintendo games of all time. I fucking love Pikmin 2. That game is incredible. You can fuck up and get hurt really bad, and you have to start over and give up or whatever. That's great. That's what Pikmin should be. The danger of it. Oh shit, this Bulborb can come and munch on all my guys real quick, and if I'm not careful, you got to have that your wits about you. Feels like I didn't have to do that in 3, and it sounds like I definitely don't have to do that in 4.
4 is still a lot of fun. There's some puzzle grouping things you need to figure out on the as you get further along the game, especially toward the end. But by the time you get that far, the game's almost done. And I think the game had me logged in at almost 30 hours by the time I did everything, and I did do everything. The thing at the end said as much. But, I want to be pushed a little more.
Doing everything in Pikmin 2 is a task. It's a very fun task, but Jesus Christ. Oh man, have you ever been in one of those, like, you're on the 17th floor of this monstrosity of a fucking, like, dungeon, and then there's some fucking daddy long legs down there that just goes poof, and then all your Pikmin catch on fire? I love that. I love the danger of, like, around any corner. I know some people might feel that's unfair or whatever, but it's like, no, that's what keeps me going. I want to see,
I mean, there's a handful of ones that are still tough, but like I said, once you find them once, it's not that tough again. It's still fun. Everyone should still play this. It's still going to be a runner-up for Game of the Year for me, but, let's have Pikmin 5 a little sooner, and let's have it be a little harder.
I think it's a miracle we even got this. If we get another Pikmin game, Jesus Christ, before we're like 50 years old, I don't see it. I hope I'm wrong.
We know this has been selling poorly. Is that?
It's been selling fine. I doubt it's the Nintendo financials came out recently. Obviously, this is too new to be in there, but Tears of the Kingdom is at like 18 million copies sold, which is like fucking ridiculous. Oh, by the way, nice boycott, everybody, because it cost $70. Yeah, you really showed Nintendo. You really showed them.
Dumbasses.
What I've been playing, which is Remnant 2, might legitimately be the best game I played this year so far. I'm not joking.
Whoa.
This game is incredible. I want to say that right up front. This game is so remarkably good. I don't know about you guys. I've never seen the first Remnant or heard of it before the sequel came out. Have you? Because I haven't. No. I don't even know what Remnant is.
I feel like that's a name that comes up on those cheap-ass gamer tweets, like, Remnant's on sale for $10, PC download on Steam, but I didn't pay too much attention otherwise.
I think it's on Royale with Cheese. I think. Anyway, the sequel came out a few weeks ago. It's not even a full price game. It's like $50, which they could have easily sold this for $70 because it would be worth it and then some. So if you don't know what this is, Remnant 2, it's a current gen only Unreal Engine 5 procedurally generated third-person shooter. Basically, action-adventure third-person shooter. It sounds a little complicated, but that's exactly what it is. Most are calling it a roguelike, and I don't like that term at all for this, because I don't think it really is one. Maybe in the very strictest of terms, in terms of structure, maybe it is, but it certainly doesn't feel like one. It's definitely, to me, like a procedurally generated action-adventure game, and that's because, like, there's very little punishment for dying. The whole point of a roguelike is like you die and then that's it. You have to start over. That doesn't happen in this game. I don't think there's any penalty for dying besides going back to a checkpoint. So how is that roguelike-y? I don't think it is. Some of the biomes have a heavy emphasis on like puzzle solving and using items, going back, oh, I found the key to this and going here. Roguelikes don't really do that. I mean, at least it's not something I associate with the genre, even roguelites. And I've heard more than one comparison of Remnant 2 to fucking Dark Souls. So let me torch that real quick. Guys, Dark Souls didn't invent a stamina bar. Dark Souls didn't invent dodge rolling. I'm sorry you first played a video game in 2009. It didn't invent it. Like, Dark Souls didn't invent checkpoints. This is, if you didn't hear me off the top, I said this is also a third-person shooter. So what the fuck are they talking about? Like,
Maybe they're talking about the 2001 hidden gem Halo.
I want to hurt you. Want to hurt you. Your face. I'm sorry, I can't stand. Like, play more than one fucking game in your miserable life and get a better reference point for talking about games. Not everything is Dark Souls, for shit's sake, especially if it has a gun or several of them. Anyway, this. Oh, by the way, just because it has guns, this is also nothing like Returnal. I've heard a couple of comparisons that this is nothing like Returnal.
See, I was going to ask about that, but then you said there was no real punishment for dying, and I spent a lot of time playing Returnal and still do on occasion, and when you die. You start over. You keep a handful of your good upgrades, but you dead.
No, that doesn't happen in this game. You just get spit out at a checkpoint, literally spit out of a crystal, and you fall on your ass. So it's like, whoop, I'm back. So anyway, the very interesting thing about Remnant 2 is that it's not just the worlds and the terrain that get procedurally generated, it's the story too. Like, and I've done 2 different runs now. The story that happened when I got to this sort of Victorian town was completely different from my first run. Like, there was none of the same characters, none of the same stuff happened to me, and the focus was on like a completely different like sub biome and not the one I was in originally. It was so different. It was wild. I couldn't believe it.
When you're talking about it being procedurally generated, is this as basic as just, that there's like XYZ variables in this, or is this a fairly deep system, do you think, where they're generating the story out of?
I don't think it's like super deep. I just think you get different story beats. I think all the story beats are like predetermined. I don't think they mess with those too much. I just think you can get totally different ones depending on.
Right. So they've got a list of 10 story beats for this town, and then they swap in different characters in and out of it depending on. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And like, even sometimes some characters have different motivation. Like on my second run, I saw one of the same characters I did on my first one, but he had a completely different motivation and story. So it was interesting. Like, it was similar, but pretty different. And I didn't see the other guy. Like in my first run, he had like sort of a adversary. That person didn't show up in my second run. It was just sort of about him. So I feel like this could get pretty different. Like I said, I've only done a couple runs, so I don't really know how deep that goes. It's pretty cool. But also, you can, like, your dialogue that you choose, you can just kind of make a backstory for yourself. Oh, what are you doing out here in the wasteland? I'm trying to find my family, or I'm just looking for treasure, or like whatever. Like, you can pick like different stuff depending on what you kind of feel like saying, which isn't like, that's not like too big a deal, but it is interesting. It keeps you in the different, like, oh, this time I want to try saying this. Different runs, you can say different stuff. Obviously, this kind of game will live and die by its gunplay. Gunplay in this game is great. Feels stupendous. I know this is going to sound rude. It feels like Outriders, but good. Like, it feels like it's something. It's a lot of fun to shoot these guns. There's a lot of like old rusty, shotguns. There's like futuristic weapons you get. There's not like a super duper amount of variety, but you'll keep yourself occupied with what's here. The graphics on PlayStation 5, baby. Obviously, this is where this game shines. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this game. Like I said, it uses Unreal Engine 5, and it uses Nanite to like build out the worlds and all this geometry, which is something you could only do this gen. This amount of geometry, it's not something we really talk about these days when it comes to the power of systems, because we're past like polygon counts and shit like that. But that stuff,
we know that the people who like the Matrix demo like Nanite, right?
Yes. And you, Kevin, it is so impressive. It is ridiculous how much, like, how detailed these things are. The effects going on is crazy. Runs at a very silky 60 frames a second. Yeah, it does have a few drops here and there if it gets alpha heavy, but honestly, it seems like the drops are environment based. Like some environments run better than others. It doesn't start dropping when the action gets heavy. It kind of just depends on where you are. So maybe they could do some cleanup outlets, whatever. That could come in a future patch. But the grand majority of the time is running at 60 frames a second, and it's fucking beautiful. Is this the best looking game I've seen this gen so far? I think it looks better than Final Fantasy 16. I'm not joking. Like, this game looks insane. Like, straight up. The biomes. Do you think?
I guess. Sorry, I don't want to bring up the Matrix demo every 10 seconds. Does it kind of like? Does it? Are you getting like that? What we were hoping out of that? Are you like starting to see that, or is that still kind of a distant reach at this point?
We're starting to see it. We're starting to see it. You and I were blown away by that demo. A couple years ago now. Mm-hmm. We're starting to see it. It's here, especially with the geometry. Like, I mean, even before I get to the end here of talking about this game, I recommend this straight up to you. I think you will love this game. You play it, Kevin. Steve will like it too, but I think you, Kevin, will.
This is single player only?
It's actually drop in, drop out multiplayer if you want online. Okay. So like we could maybe get a game. I haven't tried playing with anybody, so I don't really know how well it works, but there's that is actually, if you want to consider it a drawback, there is, when you pick your archetype or your class, basically, there are definitely some that are more geared towards multiplayer than others. And there are some that are more geared toward, and that's kind of a drawback. If you're making a multiplayer game that you could also play by yourself, it's kind of the nature of the beast. Yeah, it could probably be better balanced, but like there are definitely classes that are easier to play by yourself, so you may find that a bit limiting. I want to be this thing. This is so hard to do alone, so that might be kind of disappointing, but I personally don't think it's that big of a deal. The biomes are cool because you get the same 5 biomes, but the sub biomes, if you will, within those don't always appear. And if they do appear, they could be drastically different. So I've seen a big desert with black sand and poisonous air. I've seen a nest of alien bugs, straight out of Alien Syndrome or some top-down shooter like that. I saw this shifting cubic landscape, straight out of looks like something out of Destiny, or even better, I guess. I saw, I mentioned, I saw this 18th century Victorian era-ish city, almost like old London, I guess, or something like that. I saw this Castlevania-esque cathedral place. That was super cool. There was a forest area. There's a lot within these, you'll get the same-ish areas, but like I said, the sub areas and the way they can trick them out keeps it really fresh. And this game is supposed to have DLC.
It sounds very video gamey.
Oh yeah, yes, it is. This game is supposed to have DLC. So I do wonder what other, I guess they could bring in other biomes. They could bring in more weapons or whatever. I think what is here is definitely worth your $50 for sure. But, the map system, this is something I've heard complaints about. And you remember when we were talking about Chia, and I was saying you guys didn't you couldn't see where your map. And I said, I actually like that because you actually have to be active with the map. Now, I'm not saying Remnant 2 is that arbitrary about it. What I am saying, though, is this game does not give you big waypoints. Here's where you go next. It doesn't really work that way. If you look at the overall map, they'll put an exclamation mark. You're supposed to be here, but they don't tell you where that is. You just have to explore the map and then find it, which is, I personally think this is great. In any roguelike where it's you want to explore every floor, Steve, especially in a mystery dungeon type. That's all you got to do. Just explore the floor, and that's it, and you'll eventually find it.
Well, Andre, based on everything you told us so far, it already sounds more fun to traverse than Chia does.
It is much more fun to traverse in Chia, you have a gun.
I would have ignored things like the vague map in Chia if the world in Chia was fun to look at, was fun to explore, but it's not.
I don't know. It doesn't sound like you have to turn into a seagull here to make any like positive movement forward.
Well, just you wait. I haven't told you everything about Remnant 2. One funny little quirk, when I was making my character at first, they let you choose a voice, but you didn't get to hear samples of the voice. So I was just blindly choosing a voice. I was like, okay, I guess my guy is going to sound like this, which is weird. But then when I made my second character, I actually got to hear the voice. So maybe there was a patch in between that I didn't notice or something. But anyway, I thought that was
they should have this so like when you're doing your character on Cyberpunk and you can choose the penis. They should have that integrated into this where you have to wear pants on and you got to pick penis like 1 through 7, but you don't get to know which penis it is until later in the game. And that'll be part of the procedurally generated story when you you pull your pants down and then you find out if your love interest is like hello or like oh my god. Get real.
I thought you were circumcised. Look at this green. I mean, like, yeah. See, you don't know what you got down there. You know,
is that an M&M?
I know Baldur's Gate 3 is out right now and you can choose genitals. I wonder if you could have like really huge balls and like a little dick. I think that's what I would.
a slider for ball size.
Yeah. Anyway, if I had to say something bad about this game, Remnant 2, my only real gripe is that the bosses can be occasionally kind of cheap. Some of them have like insta kills and stuff, and it feels very sometimes like, man, what is this, Vanquish? Like, what is this, your average like Shinji Mikami? Like, oh god, just Tyrant came up to me and just tore my head off and now I'm dead, you know? Like it doesn't feel great sometimes to be like 3/4 of a boss meter down and then he just sticks out his tongue and eats you. You know, it's just kind of like, come on, man. And again, you don't really lose a whole lot of progress. You could just try the boss again, but some of that stuff feels kind of cheap. It is by no means game ruining or anything like that, but you know, it's not perfect in that regard. The bosses are cool, but beware sometimes. Honestly, other than that, I cannot recommend this game enough. Remnant 2 is incredible. I actually bought it based on the Digital Foundry did a video on it when it released. And I was just looking at it. I was like, this just looks cool. I just want to fucking try it, you know? But yeah, Kevin, the nanite dream is here. You should definitely get this. I think you will love this game. Yeah.
How long did these runs take? And I guess on top of that is kind of the idea, I would assume, is that, you know, you do a run, you build up your character, and then the runs get subsequently harder. Is that kind of the idea? You're like building your character long term throughout runs?
You can do that. You can so like after you complete a run, you can re-roll your run with and keep the same character if you want to do that. I made a different character because I want to try a different class and shit like that. And you can pick your difficulty again as you re-roll, you know. And also, if you want to farm, you can do something called like adventure mode where you can re-roll one of the biomes and go around and spelunk in there and collect more shit. You know what I mean? And then bring it back to like your quote unquote real game. So if you want to farm or grind or anything, you can do that on your own accord.
Right.
So, and then on that farming, you can choose a difficulty for that as well. So if you want to try something really hard without any real penalty to your real game, you can just see what it's like, you know? So they give you a lot of experimentation. The runs my first run took me like 20, 22 hours. So they're not short.
Oh, okay.
You know,
so you're getting...
Yeah,
a full game out of one run if that's what you want it to be.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. If you just wanted to play this game once and just do one run and like you played the game, that's perfectly valid. Like you don't have to like play this game over and over again if you don't feel like it. You know, you can make it that kind of game, but you really do not have to. And it's fun either way. So again, Remnant 2, cannot recommend this game enough. I hope the DLC brings more biomes, more stuff. I can't wait. Now I wish I had gotten the deluxe package. I didn't know how much I was going to like this game, but.
All right. My turn. I've been threatening to do this for weeks, and I've been playing Rock Band 2 with my kid for weeks and weeks. And he's really fallen in love with the drums. And as I may have mentioned before, I am a wizard on the guitar on these kind of games. But I didn't know how do you talk about Rock Band? What the fuck can I say about playing Rock Band? So I dug deep and came out with a few things, primarily kind of contrasting Rock Band and Guitar Hero, because we've now moved on to Guitar Hero Metallica. Rock Band's career mode, specifically on Rock Band 2, I've never spent a ton of time with Rock Band. I was always a Guitar Hero guy. I'll get into that later. But the career mode pisses me off because it makes you play these songs over and over. The way it's structured, is that you open up these different locales and then you're playing at like different venues in different cities. But at each of these venues, you need to get like X amount of stars by playing songs over and over to be able to open up more venues, or like, get a plane so you can get to overseas or whatever. But you definitely have to play songs over and over. And sometimes, unless you want to, like, you can go in and I guess like make your own custom set list. So in cases you can choose which songs you want to play over and over, but it's just not like that in Guitar Hero. And it pisses me off if I don't want to go back and be forced to play these songs. It seems like it was redundant game design.
Guitar Hero always seemed more like, you ever play like Dance Dance Revolution at the arcade and basically you put in your quarters and you play 3 songs and then like you're done or whatever? That's kind of how I always felt about Rock Band or Guitar Hero. You know what I mean? It was just kind of a grab bag of like, here are the songs, just go play. You know what I mean? Just kind of go play them. Whereas like Rock Band tries to do like a thing, which I guess is fine, but
yeah, and doing a thing is cool. Just make it fun. Yeah,
I mean, look, I all I can say is like when it came out, I didn't mind it, but this was like 2007 or 8, right? So like we thought it was fine, the 4 of us playing Rock Band, but this was obviously a long time ago. I'm sure now I'd feel the way you do.
Yeah. Well, now I'm going to especially expose myself for how much of a fucking dummy I am, because back in the day when I was really into Guitar Hero, occasionally I would go somewhere and they'd have Rock Band set up, and I was always like, I don't really like Rock Band. And do you know what I blamed it on? Was I was like, Rock Band has rectangles and Guitar Hero has circles, and I think I just like the circles better. And that was my default, like, Rock Band and the rectangles, I'm just not feeling it. Plus, the original Rock Band guitar had that like flappy tongue strum. It sucked. But
well, I always sang, so like I just had to look at the bar up there. I didn't get any rectangles or circles.
Yeah,
or anything.
Well, I mean that makes sense. You didn't have to look at the shitty rectangles.
Oh man,
so we spent quite a bit of time.
Do you know how many times I've sang Nirvana's "In Bloom"? Oh my god, I didn't even know the word. I didn't even know the words to that song, and I love "In Bloom," but lyrics aren't the important thing to me. It says like, "He's the one who lies," like I don't know. I didn't fucking know. And it's like, but playing Rock Band made me learn that fucking song because it's like a beginner song, So it's like you're playing a lot of In Bloom, baby, or I'm singing a lot of In Bloom at that point. Anyway.
So back to these goddamn rectangles and triangles. So me and my son spent quite a bit of time on Rock Band 2, and then we moved on to Guitar Hero Metallica. Now I was doing good on Rock Band 2. And then as soon as we started playing Guitar Hero Metallica, it instantly came washing back. I was like, yes, definitely the circles are the way to go. I finally realized that I can probably a little bit better articulate why this is. Definitely Guitar Hero has a little bit more tolerance for timing when you're playing. That's absolutely what it is. And I think that is significantly better. It doesn't necessarily make it easier. And I think that they can make more, as far as what notes they're forcing you to play, they can make these songs more technically complex and fun if you're good enough to be able to do that without sacrificing by needing like such insane accuracy. And I think there's quite a big gap in the accuracy they demand, even going as far as because you have to calibrate these. We're playing this on Xbox 360, right? You got to calibrate this to a flat screen TV for input lag. And when you do that, it's very easy to do. You strum on the beat, and then you strum on there's one circle that comes down, and when it gets in the target, you strum. it's tricky enough to do that you can calibrate it, you're doing your best, and then all of a sudden, okay, so one time you're like 14 milliseconds off, and then one time you're like 21 milliseconds off. So there's definitely some variance even in just being able to calibrate it when they're trying to make it easy for you to do.
Yeah.
And I think for that reason, I feel even more critical now of Rock Band, because I know a reason other than rectangles that make it just not as fun to play.
Rock Band is very like, the one of the hardest songs in Rock Band, the new Pornographer song, Electric version. And if you know that one, it has a drum intro from hell.
Oh,
like
okay.
that, even on easy, that thing is like, and you know how picky the timing is on Rock Band. So my friend who drummed, we'd have to start that song like 3 times sometimes, because that drum intro, if he doesn't pass that, if he gets caught up in that drum intro, the game just goes, and then we're done, before we even get to play a note or sing a note. So like sometimes, Rock Band is just picky sometimes that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing that has been very positive out of this, and I've purposefully endeavored on this show not to make it I'm a video game dad, because I think that's overdone and really lame. But let me indulge for a moment here. Mm-hmm. My son Matthew has always been really big into like video game music for obvious reasons, right? He'll listen to like the Undertale soundtrack and the Hollow Knight soundtrack, and I've before tried to push him like, hey, that's great, but let's also listen to the band music or whatever. And he was always a little bit resistant to it, but now because the band music was on a video game, he's hanging out by himself, and I've caught him listening to Metallica and System of a Down and Tool, stuff like that. That's great. So that's been a big positive out of our little rhythm game journey here.
That is great.
So, secondly, I have been playing Tony Hawk's Underground. Out of the first 6 games, this is the only Tony Hawk game that I've never played. I played the first 4 and Underground 2 quite a bit.
I love calling it
little bit of it. Yeah, that's the way to do it. A little bit of a teaser. I played this for a certain reason, which we'll all divulge in the coming weeks. That'll be relevant to Find Time. I did play. I got Thug 2 right when it came out, and I do very much like that game. But I've always had that game kind of in my mind as the turning point where things started to go slightly downhill for the series. I don't think even for like subsequent entries it crashed and burned by any stretch of the imagination. But that was always, and I always lumped Underground 1 in with that. I kind of, just assumed once they got out of the numbered entries and then they moved into this more story driven format, maybe that's where things started to go downhill a little bit. Specifically, Underground 2, I think my biggest problem with it, and again, I don't want to come as like I'm deeply criticizing it thematically, because they really wanted to capitalize on Jackass at the time, right? Bam Margera was a big part of that game, and it, a lot of it was about like doing crazy tricks in a wheelchair and like destroying the environments, that kind of thing. I don't think it.
I'm sorry. This just sounds so early 2000s. It fucking this is. Oh my god.
There he is. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's really it doesn't stand the test of time thematically, I don't think. But I changed my thoughts on that. Now I identify specifically Underground 2 as probably being where maybe it started to lose its luster a little bit. I think I gave Underground 1 an unfair shake, just assuming off Underground 2. Underground 1 still has that you create your own character and that's the character you play. It's very story driven. It's still cheeseball, I think, but in a good way. And I think the story is much stronger. It's just overall better. It doesn't feel like they're trying to capitalize on something. It felt more like they're trying to do something like actually artistic with it. So yeah, I had a better time with this than I was expecting to, even though I was expecting to have a good time. The character creator, especially given the time period, is exceptional, and that was kind of the whole point of these games, the Underground series. It's very customizable. There's a lot of in-depth options for like creating custom graphics for your boards and your shirts and whatever. They really nailed that off the bat here. This is the first game where you can actually get off your board and walk around, which has some good aspects, but there is some portions where you are required to jump up and grab ledges and climb up onto those ledges and get onto like catwalks or whatever. Some of that gets a little bit janky. I think that it was still good. They still, that was something that when they were, by this time they'd already implemented manuals and reverbs and mechanics like that. And I think that they were still moving in a positive direction as far as getting off your board to add, things that would kind of expand that gameplay a little bit. Soundtrack overall, I feel like is weaker than Underground 2. I think Underground 2 has an exceptional soundtrack. And especially because, just as a little sidebar, Underground 2 had some songs that I thought were like really unique choices that I wouldn't have expected out of an early 2000s extreme sports type game. One of the songs was Pain by Jimmy Eat World, which I thought was interesting because I feel like at the time, Jimmy Eat World would have been a band that probably would have been like shunned by skateboard culture, and treated as kind of like borderline, like not boy band, but like, like All American Rejects kind of adjacent and then like partially emo as well.
Yes, they were kind of considered emo as well. That's what I was going to say, which at that time was not like the skate community was not about that shit. They weren't like out here like doing like Dashboard Confessional or some shit, right?
Yeah.
So
that was a really interesting choice. And so the song is Pain. That song is a banger. It's great and it fits right in there. So I have respect that they had the balls to put something like that. And they also had like Ring of Fire by Johnny Cash, not something you would necessarily expect.
Right.
But again, fit in really well there. This one seems a little bit more generic. It definitely has some really great songs that stand out. It's got In Flames, Mastodon, some, metal stuff that I really like. Overall, it's good. It just doesn't stand out as much as Underground 2. The point I would really be tempted to criticize, they do add vehicles in Underground 1 and they further move into this in Underground 2. When I talk about, them implementing getting off your board, maybe having a little bit of growing pains, overall positive. I think personally the vehicles was overall negative. I don't know why I can't understand what the motivation was aside from, we feel like we need to implement more mechanics and like continue to evolve.
Wait a second. I'm sorry. Can you just straight up get into a car or something, or like
no, and so definitely like not Grand Theft Auto style. All of a sudden there's a mission and they're like, okay, you need to drive this golf cart around and like go meet these girls to pick up for the party, right? You gotta drive the car around to like escape the like drug addicts like chasing you, trying to kill you, like that kind of shit.
It's so weird.
So it's like what, and it's definitely not where they're like, you need to do this all the time. And none of it is like, it's certainly not broken where you can't get through it and it's frustrating because you want to get back to the skateboarding. It just never feels as good as doing the skateboarding.
Can you do tricks with the golf cart?
You cannot do you can definitely like drive it up a quarter pipe and like come back down at an angle, but you can't kick flip the golf cart.
You know what you really needed the vehicles for? To go through the drive-through line, because you can't go through the drive-through line on a skateboard. I'm sure that was the real impetus for putting them in there. It was just one too many times at the Taco Bell line. Sir, I can't serve you unless you're in a car. and now you got golf carts and Tony Hawk. Thanks.
You're right. Now that you put it that way, I am pro golf cart. The drive through the mortal enemy of punk skateboarders. You're right. So I get it. Overall, I'm super glad I played this. I don't want it to see. I really don't want it to seem like I'm shitting on Underground 2, but I expected less out of this than what I got based on my original playthrough of Underground 2. So if you haven't played Underground 1 and you happen to feel like you just like the core numbered series, definitely give it a shot. It's very good.
We'll be right back with your mailbag. Be right back.
Fine time.
Okay, we're back. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get to this mailbag. Again, thanks for all the questions. Let's start here. From Blue Sky, then lucentai.bsky.social asks us, Fine Time is somehow now solely responsible for deciding the game roster for EVO 2024. Which 2 or 3 games would each of you pick? And that's tough because I think it's well known. I don't really watch like fighting game tournament stuff online, but honestly, I think I would want something that we don't see, right? I would want something obscure, like I don't know if anyone out there knows the Taito fighting game series Psychic Force. I would love to see Psychic Force 2012 at EVO. Is that competitively viable? I have no idea, but I'd like to see people try. But it's personally one of my favorite fighting games ever. So I guess my pick is Psychic Force 2012. I don't really have another one I can think of, Steve.
Okay, I'm not going to say I follow Evo like with T-shirts and hats and, the big foam figures. Yay, Evo! But, I'll watch clips or whatever. Guys, the community's toxic. We got to wipe the slate clean. And we got to start all over with Street Fighter Alpha 2 and Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. And also Penel-Depon Tetris Attack, because we need to fuck with the people with a real colorful game.
Well, that's not a fighting game, so that's not really going to happen.
Says you until you start playing it. Then you're fighting for your very life.
Also, they very much play Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo at EVO, so I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive they do. Maybe it's not like on the main stage anymore because it's like 2023, right? But I'm pretty sure that still happens.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the question asked, what games are we playing if we solely pick the roster? So
you pick something that isn't a fighting game. I mean, like, what do you want?
Let's not attack him for that. This may come as a giant surprise. I would not be the best person to select fighting games for Evo. So I have set up my own little booth in the corner where you can come and play Hello Kitty Roller Rescue on GameCube.
None of these are fighting games.
That's the point.
No,
what do you want from me?
I'm sorry then. This is the worst answers of all time. I'm out here saying Psychic fucking Force. This guy.
Nobody. Maybe you can get on Steve. Nobody had any expectations for me for this.
And I gave you 2
concept.
fighting games. I don't want to hear shit.
No, you're going to hear shit. But we're going to also move on. From Twitter, Kiefer, for the show, also has a podcast called Selected Start. Go ahead and check that out. I've been on there before. It's a great show. But Kiefer asks us, what Nintendo character would have the best podcast? So, I guess I'll go first. My first thought was Professor Egad, right? Because he's like goofy, it's like silly, whatever. I feel like I would get tired of the Professor Egad show in like 1.5 episodes, though. I'd be sick of that shit. There's only so much yabu yabu, suku suku I can hear, right? So I think it would be cool if a Fire Emblem character of Steve's choosing, I guess, because I don't know their names, Crom, I guess, whoever, would regale me with tales of war. Just tell me about that time you took that castle siege, or, you defended the whatevers from the whoever's. Like, tell me all about it with dramatic music playing in the background. Too. You ever hear like a story podcast and they have like very dramatic music? I want that shit. Yeah,
so I'm just sitting here. I had that answer almost right away, just because I'm, still knee deep in Zelda. Koga from the recent bunch of Tears of the Wild Zelda games where I think he'd just have a fun food podcast where he just tells us about banana dishes. Hello, peons. Welcome to Friends of the Peel. We had a great time last week about talking about banana cream pie. Thank you for all of that. But this time we got bananas Foster. Some say the secret ingredient of bananas Foster is fire, but it's actually bananas.
Yeah, I don't think I'm listening to that one. I get the appeal, but definitely not for me.
Friends of the Peel, you can't say no to that.
No, I don't think I'm listening to that one, Kevin.
Okay. Well, you know what? I don't like reading stuff verbatim, but I worked really hard on my podcast pitch that I put into our show notes, so I'm going to read it verbatim.
Okay.
Kamek hosts a monthly show in which each episode he sits down with each Koopaling to talk about their childhood trauma and try to work through it, despite him having an obvious agenda to try and minimize any damage done. Roy Koopa has deeply seated issues with Bowser's obsession with Peach, despite continued reassurances that he still loves Roy's mother, and Wendy recalls finding a mason jar full of vodka hidden in a laundry bin, even though Bowser having just claimed a 3 months sober chip from AA. Everyone is affected by later Nintendo reports that the Koopalings aren't actually Bowser's biological children, and they each have developed deep-seated trust issues. Bowser Jr. is originally slated as a co-host, but he's asked to leave after 3 episodes due to constantly showing up to recordings late and upsetting guests with passive-aggressive comments.
And not having to do with making all the vodka in the laundry bin.
Okay. I would not listen to this podcast. However,
Fuck you. That is a lie.
Can I say my however?
No,
Holy
because
shit.
you're a liar.
Wow.
You would listen to the shit out of that. You would stay up until the middle of the night until the moment it went live to listen to it.
Wow. I'm feeling it. I'm just feeling
You
it.
should.
Wow. I couldn't even say a however. Let's move on. Aaron and Tommy from the Superpod Saga via Twitter. Thanks, guys. I've appeared on that show too. Man, I'm a slut. I'm getting around. They ask us, which video game character do you think would be gullible enough to join a pyramid scheme and then absolutely crush it and work their way to the top of the pyramid? And I'm just going to say up front, I feel like saying Wario is cheating, right? Can we agree on that? I feel like that's like the obvious answer that we could see him literally climbing the pyramid in Diamond City. I
think he would get sucked into the scheme for sure, but I think he would climb his way mostly up and then be wildly unsuccessful and then lose it all at the end.
Yeah, getting sucked into a pyramid scheme almost sounds like how the beginning of the Wario RPG that doesn't exist starts. And then he has to go travel around and, I don't know, find other people that were scabbed.
Okay. Well, yes. First of all, yes. Secondly, if we're going to pick a con artist here, it's got to be Nathan Drake. What a conniving little shit that guy is. I mean, if he wasn't like spelunking around the earth looking for like stupid treasures, he would be involved in like he would be an NFT bro so hard. He is such a scam artist. Look at him.
He did convince the world that there were like 5 good games that he's in.
He also convinced the world that he's not like the most efficient maniacal killer of all time.
Just a charming guy that likes to play Crash Bandicoot with his significant other on the couch.
Having killed hundreds of people, some of them indigenous, because he just wanted some stupid treasure. Like, I'm just saying, you know? We don't think of him as one of history's monsters. So he would definitely be good at a pyramid scheme. That face fools everybody. Kevin, who is involved in the pyramid scheme, if not Nathan Drake?
Before this question came in a few days before that, I seen a picture of Booger Man and his looks were striking. And I think he has, if you look at a picture of him, he has the look of both a gullible sap, but also a relentless kingpin. So definitely Booger Man.
Doesn't he have like kind of like Maybe I'm remembering him wrong, but doesn't Booger Man have like Giga Chad face kind of? He like has that big like jaw, like
Yes.
Yeah, he's got like big jowls more in like the 5 o'clock shadow.
yeah, kind of Giga Chadish.
Yeah.
Okay, I could see it, Steve.
Yeah, honestly, it'd be Kazooie, but not Banjo. Banjo would be like, I don't know, Kazooie. But she'd go past that, blow it all, go all the way to the top, become queen girl boss or whatever, and then lose it all at the track.
Girl boss. Okay, well, today I learned Kazooie is a girl. 2, Banjo wouldn't say that. He would just go gut until I want to turn the fucking game off.
Yeah, that hurt me, Andre.
I mean, everyone's hurt today. Everyone's been doing a lot of hurt. Manic Socratic from Twitter. Manic Socratic, friend of the show, has appeared on Fine Time. Thank you, sir. Retweets us like mad. Thank you again, sir. From Twitter, asks us a few different things, actually. So we're gonna answer all these because why not? So he asks us one. What games got sequels where you didn't think it deserved a sequel? Steve.
I'm caught muttering under my breath on social media about Chester Cheetah, Too Cool to Fool, the game with the Cheetos mascot in it. They made another one, Chester Cheetah 2, Wild Wild Quest. Who was that for?
Why? I don't know why.
I couldn't. They must have been making the second one as soon as the first one was done, because I couldn't imagine the first one selling so well that we got to get this sequel out for the people.
Well, you had the first one. They made it for you.
I didn't get it when it was new. I got it at Blockbuster when it was $3 pre-owned.
I think you having it was a crucial part in your personal development, and maybe you should have played it the second.
I'm trying to remember if I even saw it in magazines. But anyway, yeah, that's my answer.
Kevin?
I have always been frustrated that Army of Two got a sequel, and they didn't just man up and call it Army of Two 2. And for that reason alone, I don't think Army of Two should have got a sequel.
I want to tell a story, and I don't. You know what? Fuck it. The last time I was at the porno store, I saw this. I saw this Blu-ray, and it was called Goo for 2 2.
Now that deserved a sequel.
Yeah. And so like I was like, well, I haven't heard of Goo for 2, the original. Do I need some continuity here? But just Goo for 2 2 made me laugh. It was great.
I have a feeling like it might be a Final Fantasy situation, and they all have their own story, but I don't know for sure.
I heard it peaked around Goo for 2 3, Goo it again, but I'm not sure. I
was out by then. Yeah. Goo for 2 2 was enough goo for me. Does anyone remember the 360 era action game The Darkness? Anyone remember
I remember
Darkness?
it being a thing.
No.
Okay, well, there was a The Darkness 2 for some reason. I remember that came out. I was like, I think I got all the darkness I ever wanted. I don't know why there's The Darkness 2. So yeah, that's my answer. Either that or Blinks 2, because I cannot believe they made a Blinks 2.
The Darkness sounds like a game you made up on a TV show. They're like, we need a video game that doesn't sound like it's a real video game to avoid copyright issues.
Yeah, it's like in a propaganda show, like NCIS or some shit like that, right? Like it's probably the kid was playing The Darkness.
All these kids were playing The Darkness at the same time. That's our hook. That's all to the case.
So Manic Socratic also asked us a pretty good question, I think. Why can't other parts of eSports generate the same hype and turnout as Evo? I think that's a really good question. Kevin, what do you think?
I got nothing beyond their lack of a Hello Kitty roller rescue.
You are
booth. Esports overall is not even remotely on my radar, to be honest. So I'll turn over the floor.
Steve.
I honestly think it's weird that other genres of games can't hype shit up like Evo does. I just this past week we were supposed to have we did have world championships for Pokemon, and you'd think they'd be able to literally buy the airspace it would take to make enough people care to at least pass it by, but they don't. And I think that's kind of a lot of what it is, a lot of tradition that's already in place. And I think what would need to happen for some other ones to have a chance is just got to blaze all these paths for real all over again from a ground level.
You know what it is for me? I think, here's my theory. I feel like fighting games are just very easy to understand. It's two people fighting. They're punching the shit out of each other or doing special moves or whatever, but two people are fighting, they have life bars, and then one person wins. I think that is so communicable to anybody, even if you've never seen a video game before. Steve, okay, I guess we've all played Overwatch, right? I cannot watch Overwatch League. I can barely understand what's happening when I watch like professional Overwatch. I don't know what chance like a regular person has. None, I think.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. I know I've seen like professional like League of Legends and shit. Same thing. Like not a fucking clue what they're doing. Yeah, it's definitely more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of know the vague idea of what's going on in Overwatch. I'm like, I'm not going to watch this.
Yeah, but if you were to, you'd be like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, because even I feel that way.
And MOBAs are far more complicated with their head up their ass. And I feel like it's got to come with like a TV guide primer on everything that you got to know before going in, when that comes on.
Yeah, and even like the crazy fighting games, like a Dragon Ball Fighters or Marvel vs. Capcom that has like multiple characters and shit. I even like, as crazy as that shit is, I even feel like that's easier to follow than like, yeah, obviously something like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat is a lot easier because it's just like the two characters or whatever. But even the crazier fighting games, again, I just think it's a lot more communicable than League of Legends, and we play a lot of video games and we don't understand that shit, right? So
no one understands those games.
Oh, plenty of people do. Okay.
No, they don't. They just pretend they do. They think they're going to get pussy if they pretend to understand, but they don't understand it.
Nobody has ever gotten
shade.
laid. Nobody has ever gotten laid on account of League of Legends. That has never happened in the history of the
I know.
Earth.
So I really don't know why they keep trying.
There's no way anybody tries that. All right. Manic Socratic has one more question for us, though. If you could reach back to 1996 and resurrect one major gaming magazine with its best staff intact, which one would you want? Kevin, why don't you go ahead first?
My EGM time was more early 2000s, but definitely EGM. I sure had a good time with Nintendo Power. But by the end, it got fairly soulless, and they obviously always had that strong marketing aspect to it. And I feel like if we had Nintendo Power back now, how many times do you guys think we would have read the Pikmin 4 game in words this month?
God,
a lot.
I would have set that thing on fire.
I would really like to go back to monthly reading Sean Baby's reviews of the shittiest games, because that was always one of my favorite parts.
Wow, I haven't read Nintendo Power since like the early GameCube era, so I was kind of out of it by then. But yeah, that sounds like something that would have gone on late, I guess, Steve.
Yeah, Nintendo Power really went down the shitter right around the time we actually came out. But from that era, that would be the magazine I want. And yes, I know, propaganda, all that. More than anything, I miss the interviews with devs that they had, and mostly because it culminated for me in 2013 after the magazine went away outright. When I was at New York Comic Con 2013 at a very crowded Link Between Worlds panel led by Anuma, and I learned that, yes, they all really do talk like that. You can hear all the awkward laughs and pauses and things like, oh my God, this is how they talk to people. I mean, it was just great. But I'm like, I miss Nintendo Power is what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
we need that, and the podcast was the podcast.
No, don't even get me started. My choice is definitely, no question, diehard game fan. My absolute favorite magazine of all time. I was a fan of that magazine from beginning to end. It started in 92, ended in 2000. I remember I picked up the first issue just because I had never seen it on the shelf before. And I was like, what is this? And I loved it. The quality of the paper was magnificent. Their layouts were incredible. Their screenshots were just, everything was so top notch. You know, that's probably why it went out of business, because they probably spent so much money on the magazine itself. But it was one of those passion projects, and you could tell the editors sometimes had some wildly like retrograde opinions sometimes. Like one of them even argued that Mario 64 should have just been like another 2D Mario. That was an actual thing someone said. And like, that's ridiculous, right? But I appreciated the passion, because you didn't really get that from other magazines. There were so many other magazines that just sucked Final Fantasy VIII's cock. And I was like, am I the one taking crazy pills? That the Game Fan was the only one to take a hatchet to that game, you know, and they weren't afraid of publishers. They weren't afraid of anybody. And I loved it. Fine Time wouldn't exist without Game Fan. Anything I've ever done creatively, like with video games, or there be this podcast or writing about them or anything, has been because of that magazine. This podcast exists because of Game Fan. So that's how much that magazine meant to me. But yeah, that would be it. If they're resurrecting anything from 96, definitely Die Hard Game Fan. You guys ever read Game Fan? I don't know if...
I used to borrow all sorts of back issues of things from the library, and I'm trying to remember this magazine because it sounds great, but I'm trying to remember if I actually read it or not.
They even had an anime section. Guys, like that's how kind of forward thinking they were. They understood the link between like gamers like anime, or like that they kind of go hand in hand. They reviewed anime in this magazine too. It was great. RAP Game Fan, loved it. So Skoden, or Cyanide Patch via Twitter, also asked us a few things, and we're going to answer them all. He asked us first, which movies should have been released with isolated score audio tracks? And this is a toughie, because I don't think I watch enough movies to give this like a super good answer, but the first thing I thought of was Inception. Like, I think it would be cool if you saw the entire heist, if you will. I don't know if you want to call it that. It's kind of a heist movie in a way, if you think about it. If you saw the entire thing play out with just score, I think that would be great. I don't think either of you guys like Inception that much to even care, but I really think that would be visually cool and just almost like a long music video. I think it'd be great. Kevin?
I will never say should have, because I would certainly not say that Peter Jackson's Lord of the Ring shouldn't have been exactly what it was. But an entirely score-driven version of Lord of the Rings, maybe the whole trilogy condensed into 2 to 3 hours. I think they could do something, especially animated. They could do something really interesting with that. Some of the old school, the old Hobbit, and then the 2 animated Lord of the Rings movies. If they did something that looked kind of like that, less cheesy, more tasteful, and just with, obviously you would need to know the source material to get something out of that. But
Right.
I would definitely sit down and watch that.
I would, for sure. I don't even think it needs to be. And I think they could just take the original visuals of those movies and just kind of supercut them. I think it would work, personally.
You need to do a lot of chopping, I think. But yeah, it could be done. Just the idea of it being animated seems so whimsical to me.
Yeah.
But with the Peter Jackson score, with that actual soundtrack.
Gotcha. So he also asks us, where is Video Game Land? And that's a very easy question for me to answer. It's the Mushroom Kingdom, goddammit. Where else would Video Game Land be, Steve?
It's in the heart of every gamer who's held a controller.
And I always just thought it was in the showers that we have between show segments when we're on break.
That's our Video Game Land for each other. That's our private video game land. Heart of every gamer. Doesn't what does the Switch controller say on the back? If you shine a light into it, you could see like, you know what I'm talking about? It says like, thanks for playing games or some shit like that. Anyway,
is that on all of them, or was that just a launch model thing? I always assumed that was a launch model thing.
Have they gone away? I haven't looked since launch, honestly, since someone discovered it.
Maybe not.
Yeah, so I don't know. Okay. And he asks us this as well. earliest cheat code you used and where/how did you learn them? This is a very good question. So, like anyone my age, basically, my first code was the Konami code. I used it on Gradius on NES, just like everyone else did, right? My cousin had an NES first, and then by the time we got ours, she let me borrow Gradius a lot, and I got as far as I did. But then a couple years later, when Nintendo Power started coming out, they had the codes in there, and a different cousin of mine had a subscription to Nintendo Power since like day one. So I used to mine his magazines all the time for shit, and we tried that code on Gradius, and we thought we had done fucking magic. It was like, oh my god, we have all the shit. It was insane. We didn't even know something like that could exist in a game. But guys, that brings me to the question of like, before magazines, where the hell could we have gotten codes? Because they existed, right? But like, was it just through the grapevine? I mean, obviously, I remember a time shortly before magazines, but I played Gradius. I mean, look, I understand this is like, what? What?
You're so old.
I'm ancient. I know. I'm sorry. I'm the only one here who has like played games before magazines.
Before magazines were invented.
Not magazine. You know what I mean.
The concept
Andre,
of
I
magazine
want to be
media.
nice, but even by the time I was playing games, the magazines were prolific.
I understand that, but like, so where did we get them? The codes existed, right? Did we just hand out pamphlets on the street? Like, here is the.
I think that's what Atari did, didn't they?
I don't know, man.
Didn't they have a newsletter that was kind of like Nintendo Power?
Well, obviously, Nintendo Power isn't the first video game magazine, right? It's just that, like, I certainly didn't know where to get codes. Kevin is just sitting there, like, he can't wait to laugh at how old I am. He already has, but, like, anyway.
It's been great.
What's the first code you did, Kevin?
Well, I'm gonna stretch a little bit because this is not a cheat code, but I'm sticking with the cool cousin theme that you got started. When I was a kid, I had a cousin, and she had figured out every variant of the matching card game on Super Mario Brothers 3, and so she had handmade me a copy of all of the variants of like what the completed answers for those boards would be. And then she taught me, how she, like, the order that she like goes in. And I know it was on the left side, the like middle one down. She would always like start with that. And I think the trick was to like find out if it was a fire flower or not. And if it was, then you like go to these two or whatever. And she had actually like drawn me out the pages of like, it was either 8 or 9 answers of how those boards looked. To like quickly narrow down which solution you were on and just clean house on items all the time. And she was cool. So that was awesome.
At one point, I did play enough Mario 3 to memorize those two. There was like 2 or 3 different sets of boards, and I did have them in my memory. They are very gone now. If I play Mario 3 now, I do not remember them. But at some point, those were in my head. So, yeah.
I don't remember where I got my first codes, but it was almost certainly from magazines. Even the even the flipping cards one. I have the NES Atlas, and they had all the solutions printed in that.
I remember that thing.
I think they just gave that away with Nintendo Power subs for a while, and I just inhaled all those magazines from the library when I had the same game that I owned or rented or whatever. I'd write it down for future reference, and I'd use it there. I mean, like, if someone showed me something, it must have been a cousin showing me the warp zones in Mario 1 long before I finally got a system of my own.
Yeah, see, someone showed me those. I definitely didn't read that in a magazine, because apparently, according to Kevin, they did not exist yet. The magazines were invented in 1988 with Nintendo Power.
I think we solved it. This is before magazines. It was cousins. Cousins
yes.
fixed everything for us and told us how to do video game
cousins
shit.
Who were sitting outside Nintendo.
And then they taught us how to smoke cigarettes a few years later.
Yes. Great cousins. Brooks, thank you, Brooks, for your diligent listening since day one. R. Brooks C2 on Twitter asks us, with Tetris and now Gran Turismo getting movies, what is the next non-story driven game to get a movie adaptation? And let me run this by you guys. I don't know what you think. I legitimately think, for realsies, that a SimCity movie would be fantastic. That would be like so whimsical. Oh no, the city streets, we got to fix these potholes. We got to get them some funding. I know it sounds like boring. I swear to God, I think that would be great, especially if it were like a very stylized, like if it really looked like the covers of like SimCity 2000 or 3000, you know, in CG, maybe. I think that would be great, Kevin, for real.
With the music.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, I know we should owe Brooks 3 separate and distinct answers here, but yeah, once I seen the SimCity idea, this had never crossed my mind before. I'm just latching on to that. I absolutely want that, so I'm in unison.
Okay.
Yeah, I like SimCity, but what I'd also really like is the overacted dramatization of Maxis in general, from them being nothing to getting, high on their own farts with SimCity, becoming the king of the Sims for a few years before suddenly fucking up so badly that they had to sell out to EA.
I mean, I don't know why he had to make us sad right now. I mean, we could have just talked about how great the SimCity movie was. Now I'm sad.
Maybe it turns into the Maxis cinematic universe, and then we've got Sim Ant and Sim Copter spin-offs. An entire 8-season series of The Sims on Netflix.
No, you've gone too far.
I love Sim Ant. You guys ever play Sim Ant? I think it's great.
I did play Sim Ant as a kid. It was good.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Edward Varnell from Boss Rush Network, another podcast I'm a fan of, at the Retro Code on Twitter, asks us this: with Summer Game Fest, Final Fantasy 16, Pikmin 4, all those being released, and with unexpected game news being read and written up, do you think we've had a great summer for the gaming community? And yes, absolutely yes. This has been one of the better summers in recent memory, probably not since 2017 when we got like ARMS and Splatoon 2 like kind of back to back. I probably haven't had this much fun with games that came out in the summer in a long time, Kevin.
I mean, if we're going back as far as May and considering it summer, given that we, kicked off with Tears of the Kingdom, if we got nothing else, I still probably would have said yes. So,
Steve?
Yeah, I think we're having a great summer. And as far as game news is concerned, not to get too inside baseball, but I figured we would have been spinning our wheels sometime in July. Game news has been kind to us this time of year.
For sure. Ham Sandcastle from Twitter asks us, which fighting game character could you take in a fight? And look, it's got to be a child, right? I have to like Chris from King of Fighters. I don't think I'm beating anyone up who's not a child. I mean, Sakura is a child, but I mean, she'd whoop my ass clearly. I mean, same with any like Dragon Ball Z child. I'm not fighting Gohan or Goten or anything. Forget about it, right? So I think what's Sleepy Boy's name from King of Fighters 14 and 15? I can't remember his name right now. Maintain-kun? I think I could kick him in the face. That's about it.
Anyway, I think Bad Mr.
Now that Andre's done talking about kicking kids.
Yeah, I don't know where we're going to go with that.
Anyway. Yeah, I got a little bit fucked up there, but Steve and I will move the show along.
Fuck them kids, says Michael Jordan.
Oh, am I allowed now?
Wow.
Anyway. Bad Mr. Frosty's getting his ass kicked. I got that shit in the bag. But if you people need me to pick a real fighting game, I could kick the shit out of Dan Hibiki.
One, no, you couldn't. Two, who the fuck is Mr. Frosty?
Bad Mr. Frosty from Clay Fighter.
Oh, excuse me, Clay Fighter, the thing I played for like 2 seconds on like Sega Genesis Mini 2 and I hated it and turned it off.
I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm picking Duck Hunt Dog just, by virtue of being in Smash Brothers, because I think I could fuck Duck Hunt Dog up. I certainly could not beat up any dog, but Duck Hunt Dog is pretty fat, and I also have a lot of resentment from him laughing at me like a bitch when I was a little kid.
Okay, since Andre bit back at me, I need to point out to you that the duck is probably going to be with him, and that there's going to be a guy with a gun nearby.
I mean, come on. The dog is going down. Also,
if the duck shows up, it will make it a little more challenging. I think I could handle it. The guy with the gun may be a game changer, perhaps.
Maybe. He's not part of Duck Hunt Duo. I don't think so. The guy with
Then
the
who's shooting all that shit on the screen?
Shut up. Tales from the Backlog on Twitter asks us. Also a great guy. Follow that podcast, Tales from the Backlog. Really good stuff. Which video game level smells the worst and which one smells the best? I think we're all going to cheat here and say the same level because I think it could vary wildly. Because what's that stage in Mario Odyssey with all the food? You guys know what I'm talking about?
I do, but I don't know the name right now.
Yeah, the Culinary Kingdom. I don't fucking remember what it's called. It's got to smell the best, right? Until you fight the boss with that crazy bird who like pukes soup at you or whatever, then it's probably the worst. But like until then, it's probably the best.
I had a different answer. I said the Cheeseland Mario Kart track for both, depending on how fresh the cheese is. If it's really fresh, it smells great with hints of smoked Gouda and Swiss. If it's old, it's going to smell horrible. Also, the Halo level, any Halo level with the flood probably smells fucking terrible. And I do get that sense playing that it's just stinky.
Yes, definitely for sure, Steve.
So I'm dating myself, even though you can play it on a certain app. But you guys remember, and I'm definitely biased because I'm still on grill mode for the summer, but you guys remember level 8 from Earthworm Jim 2?
I do now, like ATE level 8.
Level 8, and it's the 8th level. You get it? Because it's the 8th level, and it's covered with meat that's being grilled, and there's fried eggs, and I'm sure, and cheese and things, and I'm sure that stuff all smells great until, I don't know how the planet's ecosystem works, but doesn't that shit rot after a while, or get old and stale? Like, does it replenish itself over time? Because if it doesn't, holy shit.
Well, if it's like magical eggs and shit, then like no, I think it's still fine.
Then you got what happens when you take out Filet Mignon at the end? I think that is the boss's name.
Filet Mignon. That's fucking right.
If he's like the crux of the whole planet and that shit stinks afterward, then forget it.
Well, adjacent to this, actually, let's answer this too. Fun and Games Pod on Twitter asks us, what's the most delicious looking video game food? And this is a very easy answer to me. It's Final Fantasy 15. That has like the most unbeatable food tech like ever. We've all played this game. You guys know I'm right. Like everything served in that game looks immaculate and you get to see it like up close and shit. It's incredible. If we're talking about 2D food, definitely Odin Sphere. I mean, Vanillaware games in general have pretty great food, I guess. But like, yeah, Final Fantasy 15 for me, Steve.
I would agree too, but it doesn't feel right to just double down on an answer. So I'll say Tears of the Kingdom has a lot of fun looking food if you try using the more complex ingredients instead of just trying to min-max the things for stats. Stuff that's sunny or honeyed or cheesy really stand out to me.
They do look good.
They look, good enough to eat. I would say. I could go for a sunnied steak and cheese, whatever about now.
I could go for a cheesed steak for sure.
After I was talking about the Cheeseland track for the last answer, I got a little bit fixated on that. But I also haven't stopped thinking about episode or two ago, we got on the topic of Chocobo Club sandwiches.
Yeah.
And
such a good
yeah, I still like there's legitimately been times in my life outside of the show where I have stopped and thought like I would eat the fuck out of a Chocobo right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. You hunt them chickens. See, we convinced you now. You didn't want to hurt the Chocobos like a few episodes ago. Now it's like,
I'd fucking kill them all now.
The Fine Time pop-up restaurant where we just serve Chocobo sandwiches out of Hemo and ostrich.
None of them are killed ethically anymore. None of them.
We should just serve the Chocobo like drumstick, like a Flintstones like ass like thing, like on a platter.
Yeah, I'm sure that smokes real nice.
Oh yeah, for sure. It might take a few days, but you'll get there. Okay, from Blue Sky, Hogue Like Whoa, also a great listener of the show. Thank you. What's a favorite gaming moment so cathartic and emotionally impactful that it resulted in a good cry? The best kind of cry. Could that aspect become a means of which we qualify if a game is a must play? Like, can you pet the dog? Or will connecting with this game result in a detoxifying cry? Yes. Is that a selling point? And I gotta admit, I'm not really much of a crier at media in general, whether it's like a movie or song or something. I mean, that's like, I don't really think I ever have. I'm not trying to be like macho make big balls here. I just really don't think that like I've done that. But I can tell you about the first time a game made me profoundly sad, and I think I've talked about this before. It was Mario 2. It was the ending. It was all a dream. It wasn't even that. It was like a dream, I guess. I should say. It just made me feel like, wait, now I can't. It's over. It's so over because, like, you know, the first game, okay, you rescue the princess. Okay, the game is over, but you kind of presume, okay, they go on to live in the Mushroom Kingdom or whatever. The fact that it was like a dream, it was just this finality to it. Well, that's gone forever. And it just, even as a kid, it made me feel, does that make any sense, Kevin? It just made me feel so like, you know.
Yeah, I had kind of the same sense about Link's Awakening when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
I think the same feeling in the same situation.
Yeah, for sure. That's the exact same thing. So you know what I mean? Yeah, but that was the first time, something kind of hit me in the feels, you know? I wouldn't say I cried. I've cried at video games when I was a kid because I couldn't beat something. I was so pissed off that I cried. I remember, Steve, you remember the spider boss from Rygar? I was so fucking mad at that thing when I was 7-year-old. I cried. I seriously cried. I could not beat that goddamn thing when I was a kid. Anyway, that's happened to me, but not because something was sad. But anyway, Kevin, what's yours?
I'm not much of a crier either. I will admit the movie. Have you guys ever seen Marley and Me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, the one time I cried from a movie as an adult was Marley and Me. That was sad as fuck at the end.
Yeah.
But as far as emotionally impactful video games, I think overall Shadow of the Colossus was definitely the most like emotionally impactful thing that, you know, the most emotion I had felt playing a video game. Both kind of from a perspective, you know, you're killing these giants that they're really just minding their own business, whether they react aggressively or not. And then also just like the desperation of Wanderer through the game and you know, the physical appearance. And it's just, I don't know. That was not one defining moment in that game, but the arc overall has a lot of, you know, it deeply connected with me.
For sure. Absolutely. I could definitely say the same thing. I would definitely say it's my favorite PS2 game. For sure. I mean,
me too.
I think so. Yeah. Anyway, Steve.
Yeah, I'm also a big bald macho man who doesn't cry very much around media. Ho ho ho! But fuck me if I didn't admit on the air that Mother 3 didn't give me all the crying in both directions. It's got the bad cries and the good cries, and I'm not going into that. That's spoiler territory. Talk to me in the DMs if you want more information.
Slide up in his DMs for that stuff. But yeah, I'm glad we all have an answer, even if it wasn't a strict cry. So from Blue Sky, also Flashback 64, the podcast people coming out for us. Thank you, Flashback 64. And by the way, if you've never heard of that podcast, it's exactly what it sounds like. They're going through the entire North American N64 library in chronological order. Sometimes they cover like 2 or 3 games per podcast. Like they're really doing it. Anyway, Flashback 64 asks us, what's the best summer game? And my original answer was like Windjammers, go jam that wind. But now I think the answer is Mario Sunshine. Now that I think about it, and I'm kind of biased about this, when Mario Sunshine came out, I was in Las Vegas for a few weeks, and it was like 117 degrees every goddamn day. And Mario Sunshine had just come out. It was like late August, early September, and that game felt like a literal oasis from the heat. Just staying inside. And I just remember like it was so hot and I was playing this game that was so beachy and so watery and cool feeling, Kevin. So I guess maybe that's my answer.
No, that's good for me. Especially Link's Awakening and Oracle of Ages and Seasons, those handheld Game Boy Zelda games. I always played those in the summer as a kid, and I have real fond memories of playing them outside. And anytime I get a real inkling to play them again, it's usually because summer is creeping up. The more I thought about it, anything that that is a game you can get invested in and takes a few hours or more on, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, just feels to me like it hits a little bit better in the summer for some reason.
Okay. I can see that.
Because your parents fucking, it's nice out and they make you go outside, and then you just be like, well, fuck you, I'm taking my Game Boy.
I remember, I think it was summer 92, June 92, when Turtles in Time came out on Super Nintendo. I feel like I didn't do anything else summer 92. Oh, that's also when I got Link to the Past. Obviously, it came out the year before, but I didn't get till summer 92. I think it was those two games I played incessantly. Steve.
Yeah, I was a weird kid because summer was light gun game time here. I don't know. Maybe it was because it took more time to set up and get into, but then big TV took that away from me. But I remember talking about this last summer too, real quick. I don't know. Summer is JRPG time. Just that hum of the air conditioner, grinding things at night, like being inside, unlike, at nighttime, not like Kevin during the day going outside. It's a lot of memories at the unnatural glow of the TV trying to grind shit up and what have you. Still doing it now.
Definitely winter time for me is JRPG time, especially now that I live here. Growing up, where we didn't really have winter, it was more like fall. I remember playing like Earthbound in the fall, or Chrono Trigger in the fall, and stuff like that, or like Final Fantasy VII. I guess that's when it came out, September 97. But yeah, winter definitely JRPG time for me now. From Twitter, Kane Andrews, he has appeared on the show before. He asks, who was everyone's first video game crush? You all know you had one. My horniness is well documented on Fine Time. I'm going to let you guys say who it is.
Was it a Chun-Li or no?
No, it's not Chun-Li, Kevin.
I know we have had this conversation.
I know we have.
It's B Orchid, guys, of course.
Right.
Orchid. Play hard with the feeling, baby. Kevin, first video game crush.
Yeah, I know. I'm maybe not crush, but I guess if we're making admissions here, when I was a kid, my friend had a PS1 memory card, and the end of it was literally shaped like the top half of Lara Croft. And I remember being like, I'm gonna touch her plastic boobs, and I did, and that's my secret. I touched him.
Hey, I would have done the same thing. Steve has also touched the plastic boobs. He just won't tell us about it.
Oh, I haven't touched a plastic boob lately, but
okay.
Not the first. I gotta throw props to Yuna from Final Fantasy X.
Ooh. See, I was a Lulu man when it came to 10.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, definitely that too. But they were like two different. There was two different ways of looking at things.
Yeah, for sure. No,
I think Yuna was more like Crush was probably more Yuna.
Oh yeah, but Lulu was just she Lulu. Steve has never played 10, has he?
I have it sitting over there. I'll get to it soon.
Just wait till it's Lulu time, man.
It's in the pile.
The pile. I haven't heard about the pile. The pile.
I already got to figure out how to make. I already got to figure out when I'm going to sit down and explain 8 from front to back to you people.
Oh, please don't ever do that.
The pile is a concept he uses to tell us why he's not playing stuff that he feels like he should be.
Oh, I've known that for years. I've known that.
It's not existent.
I've known that since our previous creative endeavor. I've done that. Okay, last question. Also from Brooks, also on Twitter. He asks us, what's on your plate at a summer cookout? Brooks, are you out here trying to start a race war that the conservatives always warn us about? Because this is the most to America's question you could possibly ask. Steve is just, you're just going to sit there and stare at me, Steve, but you know I'm right.
Look, I grill during the summer. I just want you to feel welcome. I didn't want to make this a race question.
I'm just saying. It's like Thanksgiving, too. Look, we're just going to have 2 very different answers. That's all I'm saying. Nothing wrong with it. No, look, I think I'm pretty standard, right? I got to have a chicken thigh. No other piece of chicken will do for me. I got to have at least one. If I don't have a chicken thigh and there's barbecuing happening, I'm not happy.
I'm not answering this question after Andre's statement because I don't want to come out and say like, ribs or something. And then Andre is going to tell me I'm on the wrong side. I'm staying out of it.
Oh no, ribs are,
ribs are okay.
I almost said ribs are race neutral, which doesn't make any sense.
Ribs are ally food.
Yes. We can meet in the middle on ribs. No, I like a good rib. Steve, am I right? Is there any point in grilling anything that's not chicken thighs? I mean, I'm sorry, but like
they're my favorite thing. Well, as far as chicken goes, that's my favorite thing to grill.
Yeah,
my favorite part.
How do you feel about a hot sausage link or two, or fucking? Yeah, okay.
Gotta do it right because that's easy to under or overdo. You gotta poke the hole
Over
in,
for
but
me. I like that char. You got to have that char, especially if they're like a bit spicy. You got to have that char.
You need the char, but you can also get that char and have them explode. And if you don't do it right, there's a whole.
I'd rather have that than like just barely sizzling, just like not even necessarily underdone, but just no color to it. You know what I mean? No
An
color
underdone
to it.
sausage is the worst thing. I'm going home if any sausage you hand me is underdone. Speaking of which, if you're coming to my house, I use charcoal. None of that propane and propane accessories crap. And but can we at least agree that coleslaw is a quality side?
No, fuck coleslaw.
Coleslaw is terrible. I'm sorry. I cannot. I cannot with
Hey,
the coleslaw.
Macaroni salad for the win.
Macaroni
Fuck you
salad.
guys.
You know what?
You
I
need a
did not
vegetable with all this meat I'm cooking, and
No,
No.
Take it easy, mum.
I did not like macaroni salad until I had like the Hawaiian style macaroni salad. That shit is hella good.
What is Hawaiian style?
It has like a few pieces that like it has some like very finely chopped up vegetables in it. You don't even really notice. Like there's a bit of like carrot and like celery and other stuff.
So
but
is
it's
that like KFC macaroni salad?
no. It's way different.
Oh,
from
okay, because that's got that shit.
And
in
the
it.
pasta, like the macaroni, is like really cooked until like really soft. It's not cooked like you were making like macaroni and cheese. It's like almost cooked like past that point. So it's like really like delicately like melt in your mouth soft, which is really great, I think, for macaroni salad. It all just comes together greatly. A little bit of vinegar. I don't know. It's really good. I think that's it. Shit, we're out of questions. We're out of show. We got anything else to say before we leave?
I think it's impressive how many of these questions weren't necessarily about food, and we managed to make them about food.
Yeah. We are three fat guys with beards and glasses doing podcasts.
We got asked about smells, and everybody is like, fucking cheese, meat.
well, what else smells good? Perfume? Please get that shit out of my face.
Wow. It sounds like you've touched plastic boobs more recently than than you're letting on.
Some of us are allergic, okay, Andre? I didn't realize. I thought we were a judgment-free zone.
Well, not if you just dismissed perfume like that, and you're going to talk about judgment. I mean, Jesus Christ. Anyway, let's end the show. Thanks for all your questions. They were great. Find Time Podcast on Twitter. If you want to follow us on other social medias, they will be in the description of this podcast. Maybe. See you next time. Bye.
You've been listening